Hi, welcome to another edition of Reflections. I'm your host, Deontay Brewer. With this month being October in the year 2022, this month is known as Depression Awareness Month. And maybe you can see it clearly or not. I have on blue jeans today and a dark blue polo. Feeling blue, or as is an old fashioned term, meaning feeling sad and lonely, and feeling sad and lonely is a symptom of depression. And so, in today's episode, I'll talk about some of the signs and symptoms of depression and how we as Americans can overcome it. If you didn't know, 1 in 10 Americans, according to US News and World Report, suffer from depression. So that's millions and millions of people that are suffering from depression. In this episode, I will give you signs and symptoms and also direct you to some resources that can help you deal with this illness. And also, I'll share some of my own personal story. Hopefully, some of this information can be an inspiration to you. Always remember to be bold, be you, be blessed. God bless. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thank you for sharing. Welcome to another edition of Reflections. I'm your host, Deontay Brewer. Today's episode will center around Depression Awareness Month. This month of October, year 2022, is Depression Awareness Month. And today's episode, I will discuss symptoms of depression and what we can do as a population to relieve those symptoms of depression. And also, I'll share some of my own personal story with depression. According to Health Day News, as of September 2022, nearly 10% of Americans suffer from depression, with teens and young adults experiencing results at a faster rate. Similarly, US News and World Report, which is a nationally known magazine, they also say 1 in 10 or 10% of Americans suffer from depression. Renee Goodwin is a professor at City University in New York's Grad School of Public Health. She states depression is a public health problem analogous to the flu that needs to be addressed with public health strategies. She goes on to mention that doctors should, quote, be on the lookout for depression. Symptoms of depression include feelings of sadness, tearfulness, emptiness, or hopelessness, angry outbursts, irritability, or frustration over small matters, loss of interest in most of or all normal activities, and also sleeping too much or too little. If you find yourself with these symptoms for an extended amount of time, please see a doctor for treatment. Adults should never brush off symptoms of depression as just stress. It could be signs of a more serious mental illness. Parents, it's also important to monitor and discuss episodes of depression in your children. Sometimes they can't find the words to describe the pain they are feeling. One should never disregard their behaviors or feelings as being lazy or saying that, quote, all teenagers go through this. As I stated, later on in the episode, I will discuss my story dealing with depression. But to go back to what Health Day News and US News and Report states, 10% of the population, that's a lot of people. I mean, the world is, at least 1 billion people. So that's a lot of millions of people dealing with depression. And I think sometimes we as society get depression and stress mixed up. Stress, there's good stress and bad stress. Stress is a part of everyday life, and it's something that everyone experiences. Depression has similar symptoms to stress. You know, sometimes stress will make you tired and makes you irritated, but typically in a day or two, you get over those symptoms, when you're stressed out. But as I stated, if you find yourself dealing with those feelings of hopelessness and loss of energy and not, being interested in normal day-to-day activities, it could be signs of something more serious. And I agree with Professor Goodwin. She states that it's a public health, depression is a public health problem. And in recent years, we've seen, with the alarming amount of suicides that, people suffer from depression and mental illness and they just, brush it off or sometimes, are too ashamed to seek out resources, for help. But we can't take depression and mental illness lightly. I mean, it's something that can, be life altering or life changing. So, I encourage people that, have those feelings of hopelessness and, loss of energy and, to seek out help, and don't be ashamed. That's what doctors and clinicians, they're there for that. And don't allow them, those doctors and clinicians to brush off your symptoms as, stress or, just feeling unmotivated. It could really be something serious. And Professor Goodwin, she also says that, doctors should be on the lookout for depression. And so I do believe that when one visit, doctors, as we go to the doctor for yearly checkups or, if you feel, if you're going for any other malady, that you should be screened for, depression. Because, I mean, some people may not even be aware that the feelings, the negative, feelings and thoughts and behaviors that they have could be depression. And so it's just something that, should not be taken lightly. And so I just, with it being Depression Awareness Month, it was just something I wanted to discuss today. I know that, when I was younger, as a teenager, and as this, I've stated earlier, Health Day News said that teens and young adults experience, results of depression at a faster rate. I heard that, people would say, oh, it's just your body and hormones and you're growing and, but there were times I remembered, at the end of the year, the school year, just feeling so overwhelmed and, this is at 13 and 14 and just, just feeling like, everything was piling down on me at once. And looking back, I know that was depression. During those years, I was 13 and 14, I had a little brother and sister being born, and that certainly, a new birth can bring stress to a home and family. But I was also growing, from a child to a teenager, and I didn't have I've always been a verbal person, able to express my thoughts and feelings. But I can remember at that time just feeling so overwhelmed and not knowing why. And I think that my parents, I don't think they, just kind of brushed it off, as, hormones and me growing and the body's changing. And it wasn't until years later, that I had talked to a mental health professional. And I mean, I learned that was depression, all through my, teenage years, whether it was at the age of 15 and 16, me moving, from Florida to Virginia, and going to a new school and being in a new environment, that is stressful enough. That's a, stressful life event, which triggered depression. And being in a new school and being around, new children or new teenagers. And so all those years, I remember just feeling, just kind of out of sorts. And I remember after graduating from high school, thinking of going to college and where was I going to go to college and, where was I going to live, what dorm and, what kind of friends would I have and who would I meet? And I mean, it was just like, it was thoughts after thoughts, never ending thoughts, and I know that most, teenagers, graduating seniors have those thoughts. I mean, because leaving home for the first time, going away to college, that is a stressful life event, but for me, I found myself, just it was burdensome, leaving Virginia where I graduated from high school and coming back to Fort Wayne, and was just very stressful. And, 4 months after that, after graduating, I suffered, from depression. And it was, it wasn't good, and I missed my first semester of college, because I mean, it was just, it was tough, and so I encourage all young people, teenagers and young people, and now there's more technology. You can get online and you can get on Google and you can type in. You don't even have to type in. You can speak, those words that that incite the feelings that you're having into audio, and they will direct you, to whether it's stress or depression, and you can tell your parents, where you all can go to get the help. Go out and get that help and find that help, because for me, fortunately, I had my parents to talk to, when I had God and prayer, and, to get over those feelings, but they were tough dealing with, but a lot of young people don't have that. Sometimes they don't want to go to their parents, and, they don't want to go to someone at school, or, certainly don't want to go to anybody at church, clergy, or, like that. And so, and everybody's different. Depression affects, and stress affect everyone differently. And so, there's low to moderate to really severe cases. And so, teens all over the world face, severe cases, and where they become suicidal, and many take their lives, because there are issues with school and dating and sexuality and, whatever they're dealing with. And so I encourage young people, that are watching, if you have these symptoms and feelings, to seek professional help, and, have your parents and guardians and whomever, you're living with to take you out to someone, to get the help that you need, because depression, and mental illness is not something, to play with. And as I stated, we've seen over the news in recent years, one story that sticks out in particular to me. There was a young lady, I believe she was crowned Miss America or Miss Universe. I think her name was Chelsea. She's a very attractive young lady, and she had taken her life. She actually, I believe it was either earlier this year or last year in 2021, and her friends and family had reported speaking to her the day before, and she seemed to be in good spirits and fine and enjoying life. And the day after, she jumped from her high-rise apartment building and took her life. And it just made news all over the world, of course, and no one knew why, what was going on. She knew, but her family ended up, suspecting, that it was, depression and some type of mental illness, so it's just, we certainly, in our homes and families and community want to prevent tragic events like those of Miss Chelsea from occurring, so check on, your friends and families and neighbors and people in the community. If something doesn't seem right with the person, you never want to be intrusive or nosy, but, you talk to that person and ask them, are they okay? And if they're not okay, offer to refer them, to, some type of facility, clinician, doctor, where they could get the help that they need, because suicides, are tragic, when they hurt families, and communities. And so I wanted to get on today because many times depression is swept up under the carpet. I know in the African American community, it was something that wasn't talked about, and I can say in the African American community because I am African American, therefore I'm part of the community. And, talking about feelings, certainly, males, that's something, that's kind of frowned upon, and just be a man about it, people would say, or get over it, and, we now know, that those thoughts are, outdated. If you're a young man, and you're feeling overwhelmed, about life, in general, it's safe, it's fine, it's okay to go and seek out the help that you need. Never let people have you feel ashamed, because you're feeling unwell when, you have racing thoughts and you can't sleep and you can't eat and something persistent is bothering you because it could be, a serious, mental condition that's going on. And, once you find out the situation, the outcome can be better. And so it's never okay to suffer in silence. And I know that, growing up, I would hear that, my grandparents would say, tough it up, and, parents and, other friends and neighbors in the African American community, oh, we had to be strong. We didn't have money for doctors, and don't nobody have money to go to no doctor. No. There are resources out there, now in today's society to help, us face life, because after all, life can be, it can be overwhelming, it can be tiring, it can be irritating, with today's society. The pandemic is still very much a part of the world, not as much, but that the COVID-19 strain will now always be in the world. And one has to be mindful, of the strain that's in the world. And so not only with COVID, but with day-to-day, relationships and, day-to-day, people going to school and trying to better themselves. And, life just happens, and it's how one deals with it. And sometimes people don't have the necessary tools. And when I say tools, mentally, they don't know how to deal with stressors that come up day to day. And so that's what, doctors are there for, and clinicians and psychiatrists, and, to help people, navigate, through life and to live their best life. And I mean, people at the end of the day, that's what we want today, is just to live our best life. With so much going on in the world, and people still fighting day to day, some people to be who they are, you want to live your best life and be the best person you can be. You don't want to be held down and dominated by stress and depression. And, as I stated at the beginning of the show, stress is a part of everyday life. There's good stress and there's bad stress. When I know a lot of people with stress, whether they say fight or flight, you're not supposed to run from it or flight. You're supposed to deal with it head on, fight it, and through exercise and healthy eating and, getting enough sleep and, such and such, and drinking enough water, that deals with it and makes it go away. But sometimes with depression, that's also true with depression, but I think sometimes it's more to it. It's more to it than it is with stress. Sometimes people are predisposed to, there's mental illnesses, in your family, and you perhaps will inherit that mental illness. And so you have to, seek out the help and see a therapist and an analyst. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. If that's going to keep you on the straight and narrow path, and living your best life, I say go for it. And so, but I definitely, I just wanted to get on today and share, some of the facts and statistics, regarding Depression Awareness Month, and then share some of my story. As an adult, I can say, within the last 10 or 15 years, I don't deal with depression as much, as I used to, in my teens and 20s. I thank God that if I'm feeling blue, I will seek out, resources. And when I say feeling blue, that's an old term that people would use to, connotate sadness and depression. And so, I seek out those resources, to help me. I'll find someone I can go and talk to. But most of all, prayer. Prayer is the key, and staying connected, closely connected to God, my Father. That helps me navigate life, day to day or daily. And, there are people in my life I know that I can talk to, my family, my mother or father, and my siblings. I know who are going to give me the direct truth about things. And so, sometimes talking to one of them, I feel a whole lot better, about life and its situations. Or I know going to work out. Sometimes, I will, through my job, or when I was a student, I would just feel so overwhelmed with responsibility. And, I will go to the gym and either get on that treadmill and run or walk or do a little bit of swimming. And I tell you, after an hour or 2 hours, I can honestly say the weight of the world feels like it lifts off of my shoulders. So there are methods, people, to dealing, with stress and depression. Exercise and, eating properly and drinking enough water and getting enough rest and, getting away from that cell phone and getting out and enjoy nature. I know with the weather's changed, the fall of the year is now here, and the weather's starting to get cooler, and eventually it's going to get cold and more people will be indoors. And I know that people, seasonal affective disorder, SAD, as the seasons change, people, will experience more depression, because they'll be confined to being indoors, when it gets darker, earlier, the sun goes away. And so that affects people, but there are, daytime still, comes into the world. It's shorter, but you can get out and do things in the daytime, and you can get out and exercise during the day, and then you can go to the Y, or to a gym all day. There's facilities that are open for most of the day, and get that exercise and, make sure you get your rest and, cultivate healthy relationships, stay away from toxic people and, situations, and, find a good hobby, volunteer, and, or people love pets and animals, pets and animals I've always read and heard are very, good deterrents away from depression. And, an animal's gonna love you unconditionally, regardless if you're having a good or bad day, they're going to love you. And so, pets are, and then family, friends and family, those that really support you and love you, going to spend time with them. And, I think sometimes life situations, bills and finances or relationships. And, sometimes I know in my own personal life, I've only looked as far as my hand could go. And when I say that, I mean my situation. You see what's in front of you, and you think that's the end, that's it. How am I going to overcome this wall? But there's always a tomorrow. There's always, 2 weeks from today. There's always next month, so you have to stay positive, people. I know that's one of the keys to, me living and, battling and overcoming, depression is I believe I was born optimistic. and I was born strong, when being premature, 3 pounds and 6 ounces, and God helping me to survive, when the strength passed down to me from my mother and father and, family members, you have to be strong and optimistic and know that a better day's coming tomorrow, and know that life is worth living. Life is worth living, getting up every day. And, if you don't like your job, there's always another job. You don't have to stay at that job. If you feel, you don't have enough education and you're not making enough money, go back to college, or go back and get that high school GED. Education is always out there, and it's always going to, change situations around. If you need a fresh start, you don't have to stay in the location you are. Sometimes moving helps, and, if you're in a bad relationship, that's just constantly dragging you back, get out of that relationship, and sometimes it's better to be by yourself for a while, but then find someone else, who's going to nurture your soul and be good for you. And so people just always realize that there's always a better day. There's always another day. And so don't let today's depressive issues get so big that they cloud your tomorrow, because there's always a better day. And so just always remember to be positive. And as Jerry Springer would say, he would always, at the end of his show, he would sign off and he would say, take care of yourself and each other. And so I wanted to, say that although October is Depression Awareness Month, please be mindful of those symptoms that I've discussed today, but also, the ways that you can help yourself overcome depression and the resources that are out there to help you, live your best life. And also, hopefully, you're inspired, by some excerpts of my personal life story. What worked for me could also work for you, the viewer out there. As always, remember to be bold, be you, be blessed. God bless. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing.